Hey, welcome to the Week 2 Waiver Wire ads from RotoHeat.com here on our YouTube. And if this is your first time finding our YouTube page, check out the other great content we have. We have fantasy player outlooks. We have weekly live shows for Dynasty Redraft, as well as a Sunday kickoff show. All that can be found on our YouTube page. And also make sure you head on over to RotoHeat.com. We have lots of great written content coming out every day over there. Also, access to our rankings and that through joining our Patreon, rotoheat.com/Patreon. So make sure you check those out.
Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Getting into our Week 2 waiver ads, we've got a number of players for you who showed out pretty well in Week 1. And first, we're going to start with our must ads, our guys who were doing really well in Week 1. And we're going to start with the guy who's currently playing right now as I record this, Malcolm Brown with the Los Angeles Rams. He's splitting carries tonight with Cam Akers, but by far more effective. Malcolm Brown right now at the end of the third quarter, 12 carries, 55 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also has 2 receptions for 24 yards. He's clearly right now the most effective back for Los Angeles. He's a guy right now who can win you games as a 2-touchdown game here this week would have been a huge benefit. We're seeing him on some platforms owned in as little as 6% of leagues. Go out, get Malcolm Brown. If you're using the FAAB system, our team kind of expects to spend 20 to 25% of your budget on him. That's probably a little bit conservative, but we want to play it conservative with COVID, knowing that there's a good chance down the road that players are going to be missing. You might have last-minute guys testing positive or having symptoms on game day as we get later into the season. And if that happens, we want to make sure we have FAAB available for wherever we need it to cover those holes when they pop up. But Malcolm Brown right now having a solid Week 1 game, looking to be the most effective back in that Rams backfield. Again, 20 to 25% of your FAAB if you're using that, and definitely worth a waiver claim if you're on the rolling waivers. Our number 2 must-add, Sammy Watkins. He came back this year after there was some question in the offseason as to whether he would. Of course, we know Sammy Watkins' history throughout his career. He has games he pops off, games he doesn't. But in that Chiefs offense, we're hoping that he's going to be more consistent this year. You know, everybody kind of expected Mecole Hardman. At least a lot of the talk was about Mecole Hardman taking a big step forward, becoming the second best wide receiver on that team. In Week 1, he was wide receiver 4 in that offense, behind DeMarcus Robinson, behind Sammy Watkins, and of course behind Tyreek Hill. That doesn't even factor in the fact that he was catching passes behind Travis Kelce as well. Watkins had a great Week 1, team high 9 targets, caught 7 passes for 82 yards and a touchdown. Of course, he is injury prone. There is the chance that he could throw up a dud here or there, but he definitely has the ability to win you games, as we saw early last season when he had that massive 3-touchdown game. Definitely a high-risk, high-reward player, but a type who can be great to throw into that wide receiver 3 or even that flex position. Again, another guy we want to kind of anticipate we're going to be spending about 20 to 25% on in leagues where he is a free agent. Our third must-add player, another guy kind of in that 20-25% range of our FAAB, and a guy we're targeting early on our rolling waivers is Paris Campbell. In 2019 as a rookie, he battled injuries, had some disappointment, but the things we heard late in the season as he was coming back from injury were all really positive about how he was learning every position. Could kind of flex out and play any of the 3 wide receiver positions for the Colts. And in Week 1, he appeared to be Phillip Rivers' favorite target or popular target for Rivers. Plus, he has great speed that he can turn short completions into long gains. And so coming off his 6-catch, 71-yard game against the Jaguars, we think you should go out and add Paris Campbell if he's available in your league. Moving on to our good additions. These are a wide range of guys. From Joshua Kelley to Russel Gage, Marquez Valdez Scantling, and Alan Lazard, Nyheim Hines, Scotty Miller, O.J. Howard, all guys that we think are worth some targets as waiver wire pickups this week. We'll start with the rookie, Joshua Kelley. As we came into the season, there was a lot of question about who was going to be the number 2 back in the Chargers backfield behind Austin Eckler. And Justin Jackson got those first two carries in the backup role of Eckler, but it was Kelley who really dominated after that. He had 12 carries for 60 yards rushing, and he had a touchdown in this week one game. Eckler had 19 carries for 84 yards, so it really looks, at least for week one, like Joshua Kelley took on that Melvin Gordon role. Neither he or Jackson were involved in the passing game, so really it looks like it's going to be that two-back system. Eckler playing his role, and at least through week one, Joshua Kelley looks like the guy. So we're anticipating, 5 to 15% of your FAAB on Joshua Kelley because there's still the risk that Justin Jackson takes away some of that number two back duties in that offense. But Kelley having the upper hand is definitely worth the ad at this point. Well, our next waiver wire target is Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Russel Gage. He, along with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, all had 12 targets in the game. All three had 9 receptions, over 100 yards. Russel Gage turned that into 114 yards. Worth noting, remember Austin Hooper left. He had a big volume in that offense. All the indications through the preseason, all the talk, was that after trading for Hayden Hurst, he would pick up that volume. However, Hayden Hurst had just 5 targets in game one. Russel Gage was definitely the benefactor of, one, the team being behind, and two, the departure of Austin Hooper in week one. And the former LSU product did what we've seen him do in limited opportunities before in his career, filling in when Calvin Ridley was injured last year. He put together some good games, and he has the potential to be a flex PPR type wide receiver, getting into wide receiver 3 territory. But especially if Julio Jones or Calvin Ridley have missed time, which they have both done in recent years, Russel Gage is probably, again, worth thinking in that 5 to 15% range for the young wideout in Atlanta. In Green Bay, really, we started looking at Marquez Valdez Scantling, who had a big game for the Packers in a big week one win over the Vikings. He had a 45-yard touchdown down the right sideline, and then almost had a second long touchdown, but he was tackled from behind. There was a knock on Valdez Scantling. He did drop 2 easy passes that both probably would have gone for long gains, but Rodgers was looking his way throughout this game, and he's got the opportunity to be a flex value. We think he's worth, again, $5 to $15 here in the early part of the season. Get him on your lineup. He's got a matchup coming up in week 2 against a shaky Detroit Lions defense. That's exploitable. If I'm adding him, I'm considering starting him in week 2. Another guy who is worth considering starting pretty much every week the rest of the season, it sounds like now, is going to be Nyheim Hines, as Marlon Mack is out with an Achilles injury, expected to miss the rest of the season as of right now, and that bumps everybody up the chart. Jonathan Taylor becomes the lead running back. We've heard the knock on him. He's not a great pass catcher. Nyheim Hines is. It is worth noting Jonathan Taylor had 6 receptions in the week 1 game. He caught every ball thrown his way. Nyheim Hines, though, 8 receptions in the ball game, and finishing with 73 yards and 2 touchdowns, 15 total touches for Nyheim Hines. In PPR leagues, he's got a chance to be a borderline every week play, as that Indianapolis offense, and especially now with Phillip Rivers, likes to dump the ball off a little bit to the running back. Phillip Rivers is the check down king to the running back. Look at the success Austin Eckler has had. Nyheim Hines could fill a very similar role there for the Colts moving forward. Moving down to Tampa Bay, Scotty Miller, the wide receiver 3 for the Bucks. He popped up in a big way with Mike Evans, with his hamstring being kind of banged up. Evans didn't have a catch until late in the game. Miller appeared to be one of Tom Brady's favorite targets, however. He had 5 receptions for 73 yards on 6 targets. Both were good for second on the team. And he's a bit of an option to go both inside and outside because of his speed. And it's also worth noting that it appears like Chris Godwin had a late head injury. There was a play down near the goal line late in the game that he took a shoulder to the head. If he misses time, Scotty Miller could be slotting into that wide receiver 2 spot on the Buccaneers team, and that means he's probably slotting in as a wide receiver 3 for fantasy, at least as long as Chris Godwin is out. Also in Tampa Bay, O.J. Howard stepped up, outplayed Rob Gronkowski, seemed to be the favorite of the two tight ends, despite Brady's history with Gronkowski. He had 6 targets with 4 receptions for 36 yards and a touchdown. That is, for OJ Howard, a guy who has been so disappointing, a really encouraging sign to see. And if he continues to see more targets than Gronk, he could start working his way into that tight end 1 territory, especially you score a touchdown, good chance to be a week-to-week tight end 1. And so if he can continue to see the red zone looks as he did there in week 1, OJ Howard could finally start living up to the hype he had as a rookie. And again, with Chris Godwin out, that's possibly with that head injury. OJ Howard again going to bump up that list of targets for Tom Brady, and they already seem to have that connection. Another good option there in Tampa Bay. Finally, we're going to move into our quarterback streamers for week 2. These are guys that we feel like, it's possibly worth starting them, especially if you're somebody who didn't go out and get a quarterback early, kind of like what I do. I don't like to go get my quarterbacks early at all, and so I'm looking for the guys that I can stream late. Mitch Trubisky had a pretty good week 1, and it's possible that he's going to be a top 12 quarterback through the first 2 weeks of the year. He's got a matchup coming up with the New York Giants. The Giants defense, of course, the whole Giants team under a new coaching staff. We have to see what they do on Monday night. But there isn't necessarily a whole lot of talent on that defensive side for the Giants. And it's also worth noting they allowed at least 17 fantasy points a game to quarterbacks last year. Mitch Trubisky, a guy I really like in week 2. Kirk Cousins, another guy I like in week 2. He started off really slow at the end of the first half, or near the end of the first half. He was 2 for 4 for 32 yards and an interception. But he came on late. Of course, the Vikings were playing catch-up coming from behind against the Packers, who I think kind of shocked everybody, especially me being a Packers fan, after they didn't take a wide receiver. How much passing offense they had. I should say they didn't take a wide receiver in the draft. They shocked me with how much passing offense they had early in that game against the Vikings, how effective they were, how effective their second and third wide receivers, Allen Lazard, Marquez Valdez Scantling, were. And so the Vikings were behind. Kirk Cousins had to throw the ball a little bit. Now he's going to face Indianapolis. They've added DeForest Buckner to the defensive line, so it's fair to say they're going to be pretty good against the run, which means the Vikings, again, are going to have to find another way to win. They might not be playing so far from behind, but Kirk Cousins is going to have to throw the football a little bit. And Kirk Cousins, although he showed some ability to scramble, which was very odd in week 1, he's much more of a pocket passer. And last year, the Colts got destroyed by pocket passers, Jameis Winston, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, all guys who play the position similarly to what Cousins does, and they all had big games last year against the Indianapolis Colts. My third streamer at quarterback was going to be the quarterback on the other side of that matchup, Phillip Rivers going against Minnesota. We just saw Aaron Rodgers have a great game against the Vikings. Now they got to go up against Phillip Rivers, and he's got threats at the different levels. We've talked about Paris Campbell as being a guy you should consider adding. Nyheim Hines being a guy on the dump-off, so you should consider adding. Don't forget, they've also got T.Y. Hilton still. They've got the rookie Michael Pittman. The Vikings defense really struggled against the Packers in week 1. I'd be streaming Phillip Rivers if you're in need of a quarterback in week 2. And the final guy I am streaming in week 2 is Gardner Minshew. Minshew Mania is back, people. And let's look at what he did here in week 1. He went 19 of 20. 19 of 20. 95% completion for 173 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he spread the ball around. He got the ball to Laviska Shenault for a touchdown. Keenan Cole had a touchdown. DJ Shark had a touchdown. Nobody had huge receiving numbers in this game. In fact, Keenan Cole led the team with 47 yards receiving, but he spread the ball around. He was very effective, and that's what you want. The yardage numbers aren't huge, but if he can get another 3 touchdowns going up against Tennessee, that's going to be effective. We also have to remember Jacksonville, again, they're going to be playing from behind a lot this year, and they're going up against the good Titans team. Derrick Henry probably going to run through that much weekend defense that Jacksonville has. And so Gardner Minshew is probably going to be looking at a two-score deficit for much of the game, in my opinion. He's going to be throwing the ball even more than he was this week in what really ended up being kind of a mild upset win over the Colts and Phillip Rivers. And we also have to remember no Leonard Fournette, James Robinson, and at running back, he was okay, 16 carries for 62 yards, but it really appears to me like it's going to be a big passing game for the Jags. They're going to be in a hole early against one of the best teams in the AFC and in their division, and so I'm hoping Minshew Mania is big in week 2. That is a look at our waiver wire ads here as of Sunday night. Again, be checking the link down below in the description for our written waiver wire piece at rotoheat.com. We'll be updating that throughout the week.
Also, right there, playlist. Hit it. Watch the videos. Do it. You want to. Do it.